Welcome, everyone, to the L7C Podcast NBA Playoff Edition. Today, we are back talking some NBA playoffs, some draft lottery news, and some Ja Morant with the NBA aficionado, Mr. Evan Debo. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, Martin. Tobias Harris over me.
Shout out to
Jimmy
Jimmy
Butler is
Butler.
back in the Eastern Conference Finals. It was another great second round. The Heat keep doing the unthinkable, and we've got tons of NBA action here just in a couple short weeks since we last hopped on.
Right. So we are here, conference finals. Like you said, the Miami Heat are back in the conference finals. They're going to be going against the Boston Celtics in the East. And in the Western Conference Finals, you have the Denver Nuggets, who currently, as of recording, lead the Los Angeles Lakers 1-0 in their Western Conference Finals. But Evan, how did we get here?
Well, so obviously we recap first round, second round. Let's swing it east. So we had the Fighting Jimmy Butlers of South Beach, who made it in from the play-in. They make it into a Knicks series, and they dispatched the Knicks 4-2. Just horrendous series from Julius Randle and outside of Brunson. I mean, it was just phenomenal. Miami Heat, bullpen by committee, a next man stand up. Just impressive across the board. So they've had big time production, obviously, with Tyler Hero still out. They've got just enough from Kyle Lowry. Caleb Martin has been good. Gabe Vincent's been good. And then, those streaky shooters just Chuck and Robinson and Max Strus, and they've been getting just enough from those guys that it's been carrying them along the way. And, again, Kevin Love only played 15 minutes, was 1 for 1 from the field, didn't really play a whole lot in the final closeout game, but he's been productive for him, and we'll say again, should have used him in the next series for the Cavs. So, but for the Knicks, RJ Barrett in that final game, 1 for 10 shooting. I mean, it was Quentin Grimes has been nothing. Josh Hart, again, just between him and Brunson, just not a whole lot of help around. And the New York fan base could drive Julius Randle to the airport yesterday if they could to get rid of him. So they struggle there. Eric Spoelstra, maestro of all maestros, pulling all the strings, just wiping the floor coaching wise with Tibbs, and they are back in the Eastern Conference Finals, Martin.
Yeah. And Heat winning that series in 6, so I mean, it wasn't like a gentleman's sweep or a sweep. It did go to 6 games, and I guess with the New York fandom, like you said, with the Julius Randle thing, I mean, at least they made it to the second round. Like, I mean, that's a big step. That's a positive step with the Knicks, and now you have something with Jalen Brunson that you can build around that. I don't know what you're gonna do with Randle, because obviously Randle was also a key one most improved. He was a key player who's gotten you back into these playoffs these past couple of years. But that series, man, I don't know why he just kept jacking him up. He was just so inefficient. It was hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, Randle's best game was, I believe, game 3. He had 20 points on 8 of 13. Obviously, he was hobbled at the end of the Cavs series, but it's just it's interesting. I mean, that he well could have been gritting through some tough stuff. Who knows? I think we both think of him to be a better player than that. But I mean, basically, like if he couldn't force himself into the paint on Bam and like try to muscle him like he did like he tried to do the Cavs bigs and stuff like that, but like it just wasn't necessarily working for him.
Yeah. So, but then the Heat, man, they're still doing this without Tyler Hero. Like I don't know how to do it. I mean, I think it's truly
and Victor Oladipo
and Victor Oladipo. Yeah,
I mean, Vic wasn't having a great year by any means, but was rarely played down the stretch. But they've gotten just enough from who they needed to get enough from to go on. So Martin, let's kick it over to so that's your one of 2 Eastern Conference Finals teams playing tonight as we record this pod. Let's flip it over to the other series in the East, and in the last, well, let's say Wednesday, in the last 4 days, we had a game 7 in that series that went the distance, and the losing coach got fired. So we say all that to say that Boston ended up pulling it out 4-3 over Philadelphia. Philadelphia at one point had a 3-2 lead. They had 2 opportunities to win one on their home court. Maybe some questionable calls down the stretch in Game 6 there. But once it went back to Boston, you get that home crowd pumping. That's about as tough environment it is to play. For any road team coming in. You've got the long-standing history and inefficiency of James Harden, Doc Rivers heading into the game, who'd lost 9 Game 7s. That doesn't bode well for you heading into the game. And then, on top of it, Jason Tatum has the highest scoring Game 7 in the history of playoff basketball, besting what Steph Curry just did in the series before. That man was a man possessed. That was a bad dude. His wallet says I'm a bad dude on it. He was just laughing to himself just at some of the shots that were going in. I mean, it was insane. It was a very memorable all-timer performance, not just for him, but in Celtics history. I've watched a lot of Celtics playoff basketball, since I've been a fan, early 2000s. Obviously, all the Cavs battles, and then the Heat and Celtics battles. And, again, just what Jason Tatum did on Sunday was just, I mean, what do you do when a dude's just popping off like that? So, but for the Sixers, Harden was just an absolute train wreck in the closer, just so bad. And he had that great game where they stole Game 1. He had another good game in there too. And then Embiid, I just struggle with. There's so many things about Doc I could talk about in the series. One is just not establishing Embiid in the paint and having him work 18 feet out and letting the Boston defense have time to set and react and rotate. And I mean, he wasn't himself necessarily, either. After he came back in Game 2, missed Game 1, but with him on the court, they lost 4 the next 6 games.
Yeah, because Philadelphia won Game 1, Boston Game 2 and 3. Then Philadelphia won Games 4, 5, and then Boston won 6 and 7. So
they are who we thought they were. James Harden. They are who we thought they were. Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
What do you got to say, man? I mean, it's self-explanatory, but I mean, I feel bad for that Sixers fan base. The whole trust your process, the fake burner accounts with the ownership, going through the Colangelo stuff, Ben Simmons, like they can't catch a break. But I heard a really good pod earlier today too, just about the accountability piece. Is like it's hard to expect people to talent to perform when there's this culture of, hey, show up, play whenever you want. I mean, we see it with the Clippers and stuff too, and they got there with Ben Simmons, who's taking a screenshot from his couch of the result at the end of Game 7. You didn't even play in the series before. You're probably not going to play basketball ever again. But it just so many different pieces, from accountability to, Doc played all these extra guys in the regular season and trying to work them. And then he just clamped his rotation down, and he played guys a lot of minutes. He didn't make adjustments how he needed to make adjustments. It was just like a completely different, in a bad way, coaching style. They acquired McDaniels. That dude didn't play. Niang got some spurts here and there too. I thought Melton was good defensively throughout the series, but he just changed up stuff enough that you're just like, what's going on, man? It makes zero sense. And then it ended up costing Doc his job. I mean, that's the easiest thing to do when you're frustrated and when you go in a different direction. And Harden post game said on his relationship with him and Doc, how are they? And he said, okay. And then he got fired the next day. And then who knows if James Harden's heading back to Houston. There's going to be so many pieces to unfold over the next few months, Martin.
Yeah, so a couple things on this series.
That's just the last 48 hours. I mean, unpack that. What do you think?
Yeah, so a couple things. One with the Game 6. I mean, that was Phillies to win. I know Tatum, obviously, with the legendary performance in Game 7, but let's just go back to Game 6. For those first 3 quarters, he was god awful. God awful. Philadelphia, this guy, he was like 1 for 14 at a point, and it wasn't his first
Yeah,
game that he was like that in this series. So before that Game 7, everyone was talking about like the gap between him and Jaylen Brown, if there's any gap anymore. But I know that people are saying because of the Game 7, but before that Game 7, they're like, that gap is super small or it's gone because Jaylen Brown was the most reliable Celtic through this series until that last game. Because Tatum was
absolutely.
just, he was just awful. And Philadelphia, and to Doc and to Harden to Embiid thing, you have Game 6 at home. You have Jason Tatum going 1 for 14 until the fourth quarter. This is your chance to win. You win that game. That is a game you were supposed to win. And then Tatum catches late and they lose. Once they lost that Game 6, I'm like, it's over. They're not going to win Game 7. And then Tatum said, I'm not going to shoot 1 for 14 again. And he had 25 at half, and the rest is history. I would say with Harden, that was the worst. That was a terrible game. Like that Game 7 for him was awful. Embiid was awful for his standards, and it's win or go home. And James Harden had the 9 points, 3, 4, 11 for the field, and Embiid had 15. And then Embiid had the nerve. I mean, he said like, "Oh, people need to help me and
Can't do it
James."
by ourselves. You guys
But
didn't do anything.
you didn't do anything. I mean, Tyrese Maxey scored more points than you. Tobias Harris scored more points than you. PJ Tucker, who he was making a lot of threes, he scored more points than James Harden and 4 less than Embiid. So when he said that, that kind of really pissed me off because I'm like, you two did not do anything. Maxey and Harris were the ones who were actually scoring. Like, you guys were supposed to carry them, and you didn't. So, and any time with these coaches, especially this year, when you lose, you can't fire the players because that's the way the contracts are. So the coaches are always going to be the first one to go, and it's just the way it is. I mean, Doc was hired because Bruce Brown couldn't get them to the conference finals. Doc Rivers has been there 3 years, has not been able to get them to the conference finals. It is what it is. That's just the truth. So I think that process stuff, it's almost 10 years, man. That it's been a failure because you're supposed to get to a championship, at least a conference championship. You can't even get to that. So now it's like, all right, Harden's probably going. I don't know what he's going to do. You got Embiid, so it's just a
He's going to be
disgrace,
30
man.
next year.
Yeah, 30 MVP who's never
Probably this year, but next season.
never been to a conference finals. It's just bad, man.
Would be the only MVP. Would be the only, if his career in his day, would be the only MVP to never make a conference finals.
It would just be
Ever.
bad. It was, and you're in the MVP, like you said with the Doc thing. But when it comes to these Game 7s, man, your stars got to show out somehow, and that's what Tatum did, and that's what Philly
And
did.
What are you doing having Embiid just catch the ball, at 20 feet out, and then try to work something? Everybody's shading towards him. Like, the dude is a monster that can't be stopped. Like, get him in the paint.
The worst is when they were doing that.
Driving to the rim, and he's a phenomenal foul shooter, too.
Yeah, he is for a big man. The worst is when they were doing that, and he was getting guarded by Marcus Smart. Like, you have to tell them, like, Marcus Smart is on me.
Trying to flop and draw fouls anyway, and that didn't last a whole lot either.
Yeah.
But the other crazy thing, too, is, I mean, Horford played great D on him this series. But, I mean, at a certain point, through attrition, a guy like that's going to collect fouls. But the Celtics obviously deserve to win the series. But it's not like the Celtics, I will say, looking at the Hawks series, too, it's not like the Celtics aren't taking games off and giving you some easy stuff, too. Like, there's a whole lot of coaching stuff with Missoula too, where like it's just this team's too talented to be this apathetic about stuff. And like you think about other rotating bigs that come attack and beat if you had them better positioned and stuff and offensive sets. And I mean, Robert Williams has been like a ghost, man. He has not been the same. Just you name it. I mean, they've had some bigger bodies. Grant Williams hasn't played much this series too, just from a physical standpoint. Defensively, but I mean, there's a reason the Celtics went to for everything that went right for Boston and went wrong for Philly. I do say with the carrot that like the Hawks, I don't think were good enough really on paper really were good enough to take 2 games from the Celtics. And then Philadelphia, for as bad as they've ended up being folding in Game 7, to take 3 games from Boston too, I think it can be both a conversation of both, right? That I have serious questions about Missoula. He's holding timeouts and not using them when other teams are going on runs. Famously, he'll say, "I want to have a couple in my pocket down the stretch," and they're just bleeding sometimes leads away. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see with them and the Heat in the next round, Martin.
Yeah, let's just state real quick then, with this round about to start as of time of recording tonight, who do you have advancing to the NBA Finals from the East?
I got it. This is going 6 or 7 again because the Heat are just dogs, man. They're not going to I don't see them getting gentlemen swept. They're going to at least take 2, I think. But, I mean, I still think somehow Boston makes it through. Just somehow they'll figure it out with the depth, or Tatum will figure it out, or Brown will have a big game in the series. But I just think, again, in spite of having a really young first-year head coach, that they figure out a way to do it. I mean, at a certain point, talent does stack up, and you can figure it out. So.
Yeah, this is going 6 or 7. I think it's going to go 7. Jimmy is not letting this team die. If Boston plays to its max potential, which I just don't think they will, I think it'd be over in 6. But I think Boston wins this in 7 and returns to the NBA Finals.
Yep. I mean, and 2, I mean, this is also, I mean, again, injuries, heaven forbid, if an injury pops up, I mean, the Heat are on fumes. If they had one more big, they lost a Strus or a Bam or something this could be a 5-gamer.
Oh yeah.
So we'll see. Martin, let's flip west and let's talk about the team nobody's talking about, the Denver Nuggets, the only remaining 1 seed. They dispatched the Phoenix Suns. My favorite sports author, Bill Simmons, famously bad body language doctor, got a terminal diagnosis for DeAndre Ayton, and what he looked like in this series, his effort, his pouting in wins. That was a huge piece. Booker and Durant did as much as they could do and drag poor young Jock Landale too. But I mean, Denver just was very methodical. I mean, Phoenix still took 2 games because those are still 2 bad wing scoring dudes over there, and Booker and Durant. But I mean, they didn't have Chris Paul down the stretch either. I mean, another injury and another second-round exit for Chris Paul in his career. But I mean, it's well-rounded. Murray, great series. And Joker doing Joker stuff. I think they've got the depth. I think my favorites when we get to the other match to get to the finals. Martin, what did you think about this series?
So it was weird because you had those games where Durant and especially Devin Booker just going crazy. And I won't lie, in that game 4, when Phoenix won that 129-124, where Joker had 53 and they lost that game, I was like, oh, Phoenix, they might do it. But then Denver took over in game 5 and game 6. I think my biggest problem is it is a second year in a row in a closeout game. Well, when your season's on the line, where Phoenix gets utterly embarrassed. 2 straight years. That's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, they gave up so much for Durant. And, I mean, new owner, you had the Ishbia tussle where, hey, is Joker going to get, just reaction if he grabbed the ball? And, he's a former basketball player from Michigan State, the new owner. And, the Joker's not knowing necessarily what fan is at his elbow, and he just has a natural shove reaction. He had that word exchange. There's just so many interesting parts of the series. But again, I mean, not a lot of defense being played, and just, I mean, the depth Denver had that Phoenix really, didn't. And you add that to one of your main forces that you got to keep in the trade, DeAndre Ayton. I mean, it just was so ineffective and just a detriment in terms of offensive output, really. I mean, just inexcusable. I mean, I have no patience for somebody who pouts as much as he does and wins. Like, you're in it for the wrong reasons. You're out on the team. Like, he's just so visible with it, Martin.
Yeah, he's not hiding it at all. And then he'll say in the press that he wants to stay in Phoenix, which I don't know how you keep.
Can't he's keep only him. Year one.
Yeah. So
Jeff Green and Bruce, huge for Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Old Green and Bruce Brown, who was huge with Kevin Durant in Brooklyn. Playing the dunker spot, being aggressive with the second unit, coming in, getting easy baskets. Being that role. He in a smaller body, he does kind of that. You're going to trap up top. You'll roll to him at the foul line, and he's either going to charge for a floater or teardrop, or he's going to kick it open to an open shooter because you're late on the rotation. I mean, he's still doing the same stuff he was doing in Brooklyn. He's been a huge pickup. And then, I mean, just between Gordon and Porter and Caldwell, you hope one of those guys gets you, slightly above average one night in combo to Murray and Jokic. And, I mean, they got depth, man. There's tons of guys they're not playing too. Thomas Bryant's viable. Reggie Jackson's viable. They've got options that they're not playing as well. So, yeah. So as a result of this, another coach fired, beloved Monty Williams.
Yep.
I think that's that. I don't know what to think. That's tough. I mean, he's so highly regarded. That was Kevin Durant, one of Kevin Durant's connections in OKC, I believe, from way back when. And I mean, just by all around status, like he's just a well-respected dude. But I mean, it's new owner syndrome. You get a new guy in, and he wants to get a guy in. They want to win now, and they gave up a lot, and pressure's on James Jones to find a coach to do that. So we might have some musical chairs between, when you have Doc Rivers and Mike Budenholzer and Monty Williams out there floating around. Yep. Again, I mean, I think, Quinn Snyder took a job too early. I mean, Quinn Snyder on Milwaukee, I think, would be lethal. Quinn Snyder on this team, I think, would be lethal. That is one of the best basketball minds who did so much with, some teams that had a lot of clunky things and personalities with them, with, Gobert and everything else, getting them so great regular season records, and Donovan Mitchell and stuff in Utah. So,
yeah.
Martin, you got anything on Monty Williams?
No, it's just, again, I think it's just another thing where you wanted a championship, you gave up so much, and you can't fire the player. You just can't. So you got to coach is the next best thing.
Let's look at the other series where Ding Dong, the witch is dead. I mean, after they came back in Game 7 and Steph dunked on the Kings how he did, I honestly was a little bit stunned to see this, that the Lakers were able to pull it off and get some great Anthony Davis games and support from bench players. And, they take it in 6, Martin. We didn't have a dominant, and we're kind of, I think, I mean, he might still have a flair here and there, but we're probably past the time of LeBron, doing a superhuman, like it's, a random must-win Game 5 and he's dropping 42, 9, and 6 or something like that. But if he's picking his spots, he's not forcing the issue. The rotations have been good, across the board defensively. They were so good defensively. I mean, Anthony Davis would get switch on a guard out there, and really hold his own and contest and give length and make stuff difficult for the Warriors. And for the Warriors, obviously, I mean, their lack of depth really hurt. You had the giant minus and the lead weight of Jordan Poole. You still have the weird kind of team chemistry stuff from the punch heard around the world going on all year. Clay didn't have his best series by any means. Again, wanting to come in, and his dad works for the Lakers doing radio play-by. and it was all about coming into crypto and going to do this and that. And I mean, it was kind of Steph and not a whole lot else, Martin.
Perfect way to put it. Jordan Poole was terrible. Klay Thompson, game 6 Klay, that is dead because he was god awful. Like,
that's dead.
He did not contribute really at all this series. And it was only Steph. Like, Steph was their only consistent player. I don't know what happened to Jordan. I mean, obviously the punch and all stuff, but Klay, that was inexcusable to be half of the Splash Brothers and that happening. They couldn't stop AD and their bench, like the Lakers bench. Don't know how. I get it with the Kings and all that, but with the halfway moves, I do think Blinka should have been executive of the year because of this stuff happening right now. But
no, timeout. I'm with you. He rebounded. He's lucked out here, but executive of the year.
Not exact GM or whatever it was.
I don't care about title. That guy should win barely alive in my job of the year award.
Hey, well,
he lucked out with that trade. I mean, he lucked out with that trade somehow, because to get themselves in this position in the first place, he had done so many dumb things. He is so lucky.
He has, but let's just say, but for the people listening, maybe this was the first time he did stuff without talking to GM LeBron.
Oh, maybe. Who knows? I mean, we don't know what goes on behind
GM LeBron wanted Westbrook. He was the one who wanted him.
We do know what goes on in open doors, and LeBron checks himself in and out whenever he wants to talk to Carvin.
Yeah, but it's just the supporting cast with the Lakers was significantly better than the Warriors cast. It's just that simple. And I know what you said, ding dong, with the Warriors being their dynasty being dead, which remains to be seen. I need to see who wins the title this year, but I don't think Draymond's coming back, even though Steve Kerr just said yesterday, if Draymond doesn't come back, we're not a championship team. And also, I would say with the Warriors, too, they had a huge chemistry issue, too, with Wiggins having to be gone for personal reasons for a bit.
Yeah.
That messed it up, too, and that's something you just can't control. And if he was there the whole time, maybe things would have been different, but it's just stuff out of their control, so no fault to his own. But, yeah, supporting cast was better, and Klay and Poole were just bad. They were terrible.
Martin, game 4, Lonnie Walker.
Yeah, that was it. That was the series. 15 points in the fourth quarter alone. That was the series right there. And Draymond said when you
and then just came in and was just in fuego. I mean, the mid-range. Steph had no idea, like, who is this dude? Obviously, we've seen spurts. He's a young cat. We've seen spurts on the San Antonio Spurs, and again, that's some youth to this Laker lineup heading into the season where, they didn't necessarily have that per se, but I mean, he just came in and was just on fire. 6 of 9, 1 of 3, 2 of 2 at the foul line, plus 8 with him in the game. Really swung at turnaround. Lakers won by 3. The Lonnie Walker game 4 game, if they're able to stretch us and head back and get LeBron back to the finals again, somehow if they're able to beat the Nuggets, and I mean they for sure have a puncher's chance. They're not favored in that series, but we're going to be looking back on game 4 Lonnie Walker as the stuff of lore in LA.
That's the thing too, where it's the age-old thing, man. If you're not starting, just your moment could be at any time coming off the bench, anytime. So Walker is what Ayton should have been looking at, like, man, guy's never pouted because he's wanted to start and stuff like that. He got his moment, and now he's going to live in Laker lore.
He did. And two, I mean, Lonnie's a young dude. I mean, he could be starting next year. Mm-hmm. There were some, for everything that was good in some Memphis games with D'Lo's been bad, man. More bad than good in recent games. And, again, like that, eventually that could be a situation where maybe you have a little bit of Point Reeves action in years to come with that youth movement. And you have Lonnie in there too. And you put Russell on the bench. Who knows what I look like, but he's a young kid. He showed up in a big, big way that surprised his teammates, surprised the Laker fan base, and surprised the Warriors. And the Lakers are back in the Western Conference Finals. So if we were to recap all of these, these are the same four bubble teams. Oh, it's a fluke year, yada yada yada. Well, the cat's out of the bag now, at least because the four made it back. So, is the result going to be any different now? The first go around, you had Lakers and Heat go to the finals, and the Lakers won the title over Miami. But I mean, there's a lot that's changed, obviously, personnel wise for these teams. I mean, Denver looks so tough, man. I mean, they look the best of the Final Four. Are you on the same page?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna say, in my opinion, I would want the two best teams to go. So I would want Denver and Boston to go. Now, I also am a realist. The NBA would want Lakers Celtics. That's just going to bring in more
Absolutely.
people. That's what they want. The NBA does not want Heat in Denver. So just throwing those out there. What I would want, the two best teams. What the NBA wants, there's the most storied rivalry. What the NBA doesn't want is Jimmy and Jokic. No disrespect. I would be fine, but that is not what the NBA wants. But I don't think it wants Lakers Heat either, because it was in the bubble, maybe, but that was one of the lowest rated finals of the recent memory. And as much as me and you, we like the basketball because it's basketball, they're about making money, and they want these matchups to make money. So
that Lakers Golden State second round series, the highest rated second round series in how many years was it?
Let me look at that, because let me get the exact years.
27 years.
Yep, and they love
most
that.
Most watched conference semifinal series in 27 years, $7.8 million or $7.8 million average in viewership across the series. 27.
And you don't want your conference finals. LeBron,
yep. You got the dub, and that's even with a lot of late starts on the West Coast for all of us East Coasters over here in the Eastern time range. So.
Yeah, I mean,
Martin, we did have game one of the West Series last night. Denver got out to a big jump on the Lakers, and you had a furious Laker comeback towards the end. So, I mean, the duel between Davis again and Jokic. Last night, Davis had 40 points, 10 boards, 3 assists. 11 for 11, and they needed every one of those free throws down the stretch. Lakers only missed 3 free throws total all night, but only had 3 players take free throws. So it was the same horses doing the same stuff, including that dog Austin Reeves. But on the Nuggets side, Joker had 12 boards in the first half, helping secure extra possessions, getting up scores. He had 34, 21 boards, and 14 assists. Down the stretch, Lakers had a chance to, trying to recall it was late last night. Lakers had a chance. LeBron did a kind of forced pull-up 3, missed a scrum for the ball. That thing ping-ponged around on the floor, and I thought there was a tie-up a couple times, and then you had Aaron Gordon leak out for a wide-open dunk once Denver secured it in the backcourt, kind of cherry-picking, and that put the Lakers really in a tough spot. So you kind of had, and then, LeBron came down again next possession and got stripped by Joker. So Denver takes game one, 132-126. That felt like a winnable game for the Lakers down the stretch as compared to how that ended. I mean, they were rolling. I mean, they had no answer for Joker. Denver had no answer for Davis. Bruce Brown, again, as we just spoke of, had 16 off the bench. They got enough out of KCP and Jamal Murray, who combined for 52, who weren't Joker. That was huge. So, I mean, they take it by 6 in game one. But Lakers obviously looking a couple days here to take home court advantage. Martin, who do you like in the series? How long does it go? All the fun.
So I think so I'm 1-1 with the Lakers right now. I picked them to beat Memphis, and I thought they were going to lose to the Warriors in 7. But the Lakers have been winning these in 6. But I just think what we already talked about with the getting used to not getting these LeBron Herculean performances, I think Denver will win this in 7. Especially after last night when they were almost up 30 and they took their foot off the gas and almost lost the game. Like, that might help them because they know they got to keep the foot on the gas, but I think they win this in 7.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen stuff. Again, as the old adage goes, it's not a series until somebody beats somebody else on their home court. So, I mean, Denver has home court. They're up 1-0. They played one game at home. They've got to win 3 more to get to the finals. Lakers aren't just going to roll over, but I could see this one going 7. I do have Denver advancing. I mean, from a personal standpoint, I'll just say the prospect, obviously, of at age 38, LeBron could add a 5th title. That's certainly interesting. So, I mean, and Anthony Davis is rolling right now. If Anthony has a bad tumble or anything else, the series is done. It's over. They need everything out of this guy, Superman wise, to advance and get where they need to be. He's delivered, man. I mean, outside of Jokic and Butler, I mean, this is your 1C for best players in the playoffs. I mean, he's just been an animal. I mean, and defensively, what he's been doing too. He did it in Memphis. He did it against the Grizzlies. He did it against the Warriors. He is a force to be reckoned with. And I mean, we say all year, is Anthony Davis going to play? And load management and rest and this and that and this and that. But like when push comes to shove, we're here right now, and Evan needs to be quiet in October if he's going to do what he's doing now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean,
so we got a lot of great basketball. We're kind of on a every other night thing. When the series switch, we might have yet another day. We had that day Saturday, right, with no basketball. That was so tough. That was so painful. It was just the saddest of days in playoff season, just with no basketball. I mean, I don't know what to do on those kinds of days when you don't have that to climb down from at the end of the night. But so that's that. Martin, we had another big event last night prior to tip. We had the long-awaited, most anticipated NBA lottery in years. For a prospect, many have been comparing with, we haven't seen anything to this potential caliber and game-changing everything since LeBron. You've got a 7'4", 7'5" freak who can hit threes, and you can't block his shot when he takes a jumper, and just, again, the go-go gadget arms and everything. We've not seen anything like this. We've seen Kristaps Porzingis with similar length, but not move how this guy moves. We've seen Giannis at, a few inches shorter do similar things, but not have the jump shot like this guy. You always get worried about knees and, how much torque is being put on this ligament and everything else, and feet. But this guy is what everybody's been tanking and everything else for. And we go through the lottery. Thankfully, Dallas does not win. They do get to keep their pick after tanking at the end of the season, because there was top 10 protected, or else I had to go to New York. So they do keep theirs. The poor Detroit Pistons, who had tied for the best odds, end up with the 5th pick, right? And then you're down to your final 3 were Portland, were San Antonio, and were Charlotte. And then your number 1 pick ends up being the San Antonio Spurs, Martin. How do you feel about Wembanyama playing for Popovich, who will coach David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Kawhi Leonard, obviously Ginobili and Parker, and now gets a crack at the newest phenom later this fall?
Yeah. So what I will say is that when I heard the news that the Spurs got the pick, because I wasn't able to watch it because I was moderating the L7C anime draft that was going on last night, so my attention was fully on that. But I did get the alert that the Spurs got it. So I think depending on how well, now I think Pop's going to coach a couple more years, but I don't think there's any better hands you would want that type of phenom to be under than Popovich. Out of all the other coaches who were available, I mean, he's the best coach in that lottery pool. So for him to land there, I think, and obviously the connection with France and all the international players that have come through the Spurs organizations, the number 1 picks, that the Spurs have had with Dave Robinson, Tim Duncan, who've both won titles. So this changes the outlook on the Spurs because now you could potentially be another destination place and you can rebuild that Spurs dynasty. Because let's be honest, our entire, not even basketball lives before Tim Duncan retired, the Spurs never had a losing season.
Nope.
So seeing them, it's weird if you've watched basketball from 2000s, from even, let's say 1999 to like 2020 or 19. It's so weird not seeing the Spurs in the playoffs. It feels still weird to me. I don't know about you, but it feels weird.
Yeah, it feels weird. I mean, it's I'm glad they got the pick. I just felt weird about
anyone but Dallas.
Anybody but Dallas, yes, anybody but Dallas. You know, I think that on the back end, I mean, with Pop at his age and however much longer he's going to go, and they've got a lot of cap space to absorb maybe some bad contracts and take on some more picks and stuff. That I think they could. I think that there might be like some slight pressure here on the timetable of sorts, that, and based on, hey, if this guy's everything is billed as advertises, there could be an opportunity here for them to be frisky and be dancing with the play-in status here pretty quick. If this guy's billed as advertised, and I mean they've got some great defenders, Devin Vassell, Zach Collins has kind of revived his career a little bit. You got some former Buckeyes on there, and Malachi Branham. There's some gritty young pups on that roster, and you've got a coach like Pop that R.C. Buford in the front office, and those guys they'll figure out a way to get some more picks, and that could be a bailout, $100 million bailout. What are you talk about luxury taxes and stuff? Or sure, we'll take your Jordan Poole, let him shoot however many times a game, and have him coming off the bench, and you give us some assets, and then you can suddenly re-sign Draymond for a little bit more and figure that stuff out. There's contracts like that. You've got old Chris Paul on a heavy contract too. That could be a guy come in, make sure Wembanyama's in the perfect set. There's a lot of opportunity there, I think. I mean, across the board to potentially be a little frisky next year in year one.
Yeah, agreed, man. I agree, but now we know where he's going, so that is over. That is done with. Now we'll see what the rest of the draft falls, because now we know where Victor's going. I mean, there's no sheep over wolves clothing. There's nothing. So we know where he's going now. He's going to be going to San Antonio.
We know where he's going, Martin, and we know where at game one in the FedEx Forum that Ja Morant's not going to be going, and that's going to be in uniform. Martin, what happened over the weekend?
Ja Morant, just long story short, I'm not going to go over his whole history. He was seen on Instagram Live, on his friend's Instagram Live, listening to some NBA YoungBoy, and again, he was just caught with a gun. Just nice. Again, you already know the history, all the stuff that Ja's gone through this year. He just got his ass beat. Excuse my language, but they literally just lost by 40 in the semifinals as the number 2 seed, when everyone knows I'm fine out here in the West. And he's like, oh, I said it, so I have to deal with it. I want to be a better person, have the suspension, went to therapy, all that stuff. And then here we are again with Ja, and he is now potentially facing another suspension. Adam Silver talked yesterday saying I'm disturbed by it. So he's just in the news again for the wrong reasons, man. And it's kind of, it's such a contrast where this is the thing I love about sports, is that one moment in history changes everything. Like we talked about the Tatum thing. If Philly closes that out, Tatum is not looked at as like a top 10, well, to some people, top 10 player in the league. Last year, at this time, we were talking about if Ja did not get hurt, they would have beat the Warriors. Now we're talking about, is Ja going to get suspended for double-digit games to start next season in October? Like the change in a year is crazy, and that's also kids how don't take anything for granted because it could be snatched away from you at any moment. But that's where we're at now with Ja,
Also,
man.
kids, be accountable for your actions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I couldn't believe it, Martin. When I saw that video,
Mm-hmm.
I could not believe it. I was not buying. You know me. I work in the public relations field.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about storytelling. I'm about, especially too, like when it comes to crisis stuff. Even back to college, they teach you 101 that, like, listen, if you mess up, you got to hold yourself accountable. You have to admit fault. You have to mark out correction steps, and then you got to put in the time and the work to earn people's trust back, no matter what it is. If you're a $500 million organization and you have, some ethics issue, or you have, your CEO, has some big gaffe, or there's missing funds somewhere. Like, when you're in damage control, it's all about trying to earn people's trust back, and you'll never fully earn people's trust back. It gets better the longer you prove yourself in a favorable way over time, and you'll do stunts. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's pieces that are authentic, and then there's also pieces that are, kind of theater and kind of stunts. I didn't want to believe that was the case, but I mean, it was just so hard to believe, man, that, like, I'm going to go work on some breathing practices and stuff in Florida, and I'm going to be suspended for 8 games, and I'm going to come back and, yep, I learned my lesson, and that gun wasn't mine, and it's not who I am, and we're right back here a month later, man. A month later, like, it was all for show.
Yeah, it's bad.
And the NBA, let's not get this wrong here. The NBA did him a solid. The NBA did the Memphis Grizzlies a solid. That I almost feel like the NBA was definitely involved in. Listen, here's the best case scenario for you. We don't want to throw the book at you. We have to hold you accountable for your actions. We're going to do an investigation. The Colorado police said you've broken no laws, but again, it's just you're held to a different standard when you make oodles and oodles of millions of dollars, right? That when you have these giant shoe deals, and then there's expectations with those companies when you sign on the dotted line not to shed negative light on those companies by your actions. There was a piece there. Did you hear Adam Silver's interview last night? It was the first time publicly he was talking about it. But I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically said, when I was sitting across from Ja, and he said, the thing that troubled him most was how many kids saw him, kind of be flippant with gun use in today's age, with as much violence as we have go on, that, visually, nonverbals, using that as however he intended it to use it, whatever, they're looking at, for some of these kids, my favorite athlete, an athlete I know, somebody of power, somebody of wealth, and they're associating, just carelessness with a firearm like that in a public setting. And he does it again. I mean, you could just tell Adam was so deflated when he heard that, or when he was speaking those words last night.
Oh, yeah, I did hear it. It's just because, again, like, he was just in there with that suspension, and then to get caught again, it's just, again, what you said, be accountable for your own actions. It's not a good look.
It's not. I mean, I don't know where Adam Silver goes with this. It's going to be a hefty suspension. It's going to be a hefty fine. We've already heard Joe Dumars talk about repeat offenders.
Yep, that's going to be a big thing. That's going to be a big thing.
This is going to be a big thing, and it's not like this was 18 months later. This was a matter of weeks, Martin.
Yep,
matter of weeks. I mean, I don't know why that. I just don't know the motivations behind it, and I don't know if it's your friend group, if you're leading it. I mean, there's a lot of questions to be unanswered, but at a certain point, it happened. You can fill in the context can argue all you want. Listen, like it didn't. I also didn't break any laws or whatever else, or we thought we're being funny, or I mean, wherever you get down to is this happened again in a disparaging way that hurt. And the NBA is a private business. It's not like again, there says he didn't break any laws. Like we're good. Like the NBA can weigh down and admonish and lay down the law as much as they want to. But I think it'll be hefty. I think the number at least has. I've heard 25 games. I think the number put me on down to saying I think the number's got a 3 in front of it, Martin.
Okay.
At least.
Okay. It's crazy.
And I feel bad for the rest of his Memphis teammates.
Yeah. It's crazy how we're talking about a suspension for a guy who just got smoked at the playoffs, and the new season doesn't even start till October.
It's a different world, man.
Yeah, it is. It is different. Evan, anything else?
No, we got some good basketball on a positive note ahead of us. I'll be interested to see how the Heat and Celtics dig in here in a little bit. And as always, thanks for listening, listeners. Yep. We appreciate you.
100%. And I would say with the Heat and Celtics, the only time I'm going to say Jimmy Butler doesn't have a chance is literally when the series is over and the Heat are out.
Well said, because that guy is going down swinging if he's going down.
100%.
But we'll see. We'll see how if he's as aggressive as he was in Milwaukee game one up against some big players, some big teams, and some big potential here.
100%. And Evan already said it. Thank you guys for listening to the L7C podcast. Next time we're back, we're previewing the NBA Finals. That's crazy. We're getting close to the finals, so we'll be back then. And with that being said, enjoy these conference finals. Take care. Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.